Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, I'm going to be looking at Tails 5.0. And it's been a while. Right after this. Tails 5.0 was released recently. They come out with new versions every month, but they don't bring out major versions. That is, they don't shift like from 4.0 to 5.0 only about once every 2 years or so. Yeah, that's going to vary, of course. It depends on what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about what's in this release. Tails stands for the Amnesic Incognito Live System, or Tails. It is a Debian-based Linux distribution, and it's aimed at protecting your privacy and your anonymity while you're online. Tails connects to the internet via Tor, so you don't have a choice. It's going to go through the Tor network. The idea behind Tails is that it is immutable. It does not save any of your content. It's basically, you launch it, you run it, you're done, you destroy it. And it doesn't keep any logs or any data or any footprint that might be left around that would indicate any activity that you had. So Tails began, and now there's some things that you can do. If you're a journalist, you're a blogger that is concerned about their privacy, then you probably will want to be able to launch a word processor, whatever else, maybe presentation tools or graphics utilities that allows you to put your story together. So there are ways that you can persist the storage around that, and we'll talk about that. Tails began in June of 2009, and oddly enough, it is supported by the Tor project, as well as others. There's other people that support it as well. Tails provides a major release about every 2 years, as they said, and they do minor updates about every 30 days. So the next release, 5.1, should be available sometime in June. Yeah, it's a little tough to keep up with sometimes, but they're trying to make sure that they're giving you the most secure environment. What are the requirements to try to run this thing? And so Tails 5.0 requires a system with a 64-bit Intel AMD CPU. You need at least 2 gig of memory, which again, I'm going to chuckle because probably 4 gig would be more likely. You need at least an 8 gigabyte USB stick, particularly if you're going to have persistent storage on that USB. You also need to have a system that's capable of booting from a USB because Tails does not install. You don't have an installer that's going to put this on a hard drive. It does not support ARM, and so you can run Tails on Intel Macs, but you can't run it on Intel M1 Mac. Some tips in running 5.0 or at Tails in general. So if you are, if you've got video or you have word processing documents or you have images, you know that there is metadata associated with that could fingerprint you. It could have your GPS on it. It could have a location, a piece of information, and certainly would have date and times that they might be able, that someone who was trying to find out who you were could potentially track you to a location. So you want to clean the metadata from the files before you share them, of course. Also, it is recommended that now there isn't any indication that anyone has ever used this mechanism, but these are just if you're paranoid. So only use your Tails sessions for one purpose at a time. Don't be signing on to multiple social media sites. In fact, don't sign on to any social media sites at all. But if you are visiting a particular website and you're gathering information, restart it the next time you want to go to the next site. Don't track your cookies all the way through. So your ISP will know that you're running Tor, and they probably will figure out you're also running Tails, but they can't see the sites that you visit. So if you're concerned about that, the other thing is the sites you are visiting in turn do know you're running Tor, And I've noticed a number of them have begun to shut down access to Tor sites. The reason for that is that the exit nodes are made public. Exit nodes can be used to eavesdrop on data being sent. In fact, there has been a number of occasions where that has happened. But Tails uses HTTPS if you're going through the browser. They use HTTPS everywhere so that you have the additional protection of an encrypted data channel between you and your end site. So, yeah, to keep the data encrypted while exiting the Tor network, which is a good idea. The other one is that the Tor network does actively remove exit nodes that are caught collecting data. But, it's a cat and mouse game. Adversaries that are monitoring both the entrance and the exit nodes could possibly identify you. If you're using, you're going to a library, or you're going to, if there's still any of those around, internet cafes, or you're in an environment where you have, like a hotel, where you have shared computers that are available for use, make sure that you install Tails from a computer you trust ahead of time. Don't use the computer that is in a shared environment to download Tor and then copy it to a USB. So, yeah, always install Tails from a trusted operating system as well. Don't just trust whatever that is on that shared. You don't know what's there. Also, don't plug your Tails. These should all be common sense things. So, don't plug your Tails USB stick while another operating system is running on the computer. Now, yeah, if you run a virtual machine, it's going to tell you. And today I am going to run this under a virtual machine just because I wanted to show you how to do that, and also how to turn on persistent store if you're using a VM. And then only use that stick to run Tails. So especially if you're in a shared environment, you probably aren't going to want to turn on persistent storage to allow rights to that. So, yeah. Anyway, be wise about what you're doing. Also, no operating system obviously can protect you against hardware alterations. Use a password manager to save passwords. That way, if there is a keyboard logger, it isn't going to be able to capture what you do. So, yeah. Also, you could use the screen keyboard too, which would bypass the ability of a keyboard logger. So no operating system can protect against the BIOS in a firmware attack. So if you're in a shared environment, how do you know if the BIOS or the UEFI has been modified on that machine? You don't know. Or what about the drivers that maybe they have capture going on inside the driver, and they're pulling memory out, or they're pulling GPU memory out as well. So the other thing is that if it's your personal computer, obviously keep your computer in a safe location. So yeah, you know that the only person that's going to be messing with that computer is you. However, just be aware that although there is no evidence of this, security researchers have shown that a computer BIOS can be modified remotely. So if your computer has recently been repaired, or if it was stolen and then you recovered it, make sure that the BIOS UEFI version, you might want to record these things before when you get your machine, and when you update the BIOS or the UEFI, that you know what the current versions are, and make sure that those sources are coming from official sources before launching Tails. I mean, if you get it back, you're in a nuke and pave, and this is my opinion. If you do have a stolen machine and you do manage to get it back, you're in a nuke and pave at best to try to get it back, because you don't know what was done to it, right? So the other one, if the computer you're using is a public computer, same thing. You have no idea what it's been modified to do. If you use public computers frequently, here's my suggestion. I would use a special USB stick for those. I wouldn't use that. I wouldn't go home and plug it into my computer afterwards after you've been on. I mean, it's just common sense, right? Again, if you're using that stick, and you might want to burn it after every time that you've used it on a different shared computer, you might want to burn that USB and make a new copy. Don't use the same USB. I mean, burn the USB. Get rid of it. and then dispose of it when you're upgrading to your Tails versions as well. So, in other words, once you've identified this as a shared USB stick, only use it on shared machines. What are some of the changes in Tails 5.0? So, like I said, it is based on Debian 11 Bullseye. It does include GNOME 3.38 support, so it is following the Debian model. Also, the Tor browser is 11.0.11, which is fairly close to the current. Now, Tails will keep up fairly good with the Tor browser, so you don't need to worry about if you've upgraded. When you upgrade to 5.1, you'll pick up a new set of release changes then as well. Also, MAT was upgraded from 0.8 to 0.12. That's not a downgrade, it is an upgrade. So updates also to Audacity, the disk utility, great spelling, GIMP, Inkspace, and LibreOffice have all been updated in this release as well, those versions. Also, they have replaced OpenPGP and Seahorse. Seahorse was the original password manager that was on it with Cleopatra. And also, I'll show you how to set up persistent storage today. And if you do that, you get an extra, the ability now to add additional software to the system. And I think this is kind of interesting the way they do this, is that when we walk through it, if you have software that you want to install on your persistent storage, say like I want HTOP or NeoFetch or Git or whatever. If I do that, then it gives you the option of only installing it one time or every time. So every time the persistent store launches, it's going to copy it back onto your memory. So yeah, which is kind of nice, I find. And then the GNOME activity search has been made available now in Tails 5.0. So before it used kind of a goofy menu looking thing, which now it's more of a GNOME 3.38 experience. So also there's support for driverless printing and scanning. So if your print driver happens to support one of those mechanisms, you don't need to install drivers anymore on your system. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be using Virt Manager. You can use VirtualBox and you can use GNOME boxes if you want, but GNOME boxes, however, will not have the ability to have persistent storage. If you're just looking for, to be able to use Tails in a throwaway environment and you don't need persistent storage, then those will work fine. I'm going to be using the Virt Manager today because, like any of the KVMs, I can alter the mechanism by which it boots. Now you'll notice I already have a couple of them here already. So I'm getting ready to make a copy. I've got the image, and you'll need the disk image for this, not the ISO. The ISO will allow you to boot like it on a virtual machine, but it won't allow you to have a persistent store. So you need the image. So I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of that, and I'll show you why in a minute here. And yeah, might help to do that. All right, so you'll notice that it's a 1.2 gig file. That's not big enough to do a persistent store, so I need to truncate that. And I think I'll give it 8,000 meg. Let's just see what I got. Keep wanting to hit 4. All right, so oops, I need the H. If you want to read it, it looks like it's 8 gig, 7.9 gig. So that should be plenty for what I need to do today. So I'm going to go over here to the Virt Manager. I know this is going to be a bit of an eye chart, but there's no way to expand this. I'm sorry. So I'll just tell you what I'm doing. I'm selecting an option to allow me to import an existing disk image, which is what that is over there. And I'm going to forward, and I'm going to browse for it. I'll probably have to refresh this, but that's the one I want. That's the refresh button right there. And I'll choose that as my volume. And then I'll need to define this as a operating system type. That's required for Virt Manager. And I'm going to give this 4096 and 4 processors. The next thing is we'll do Tails 3, since that's what I've done. All the rest of those are fine, but I need to do some additional customization in the configuration before I can actually install it. Otherwise, it will not work. And these are things that I need for the VM. So I'll go ahead and finish that. And that'll bring up this menu here. And I'm looking for virt.io disk. Yours might be disk 0, you might be disk 1, but I need to change this to USB. And I'm going to open this up and I'm going to hit apply, and you'll notice I get a new option here for removable. I'll need to check that. I need to have that on because your persistent store is not mounted initially. So I need to make sure that this is able to be removable. So I'll apply that and then I'll begin the installation. And this will take a few minutes to come up. I won't wait for that to time out. I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter. Okay, so you'll notice that I don't have anything here about persistent stores because I haven't set one up yet. So I need to start Tails. And I'm going to get a warning that, hey, you're on a virtual machine, yada, yada, yada. That's fine. I know that's bad practice, but I mean, I'm trying to show you Tails only understands, I believe, one display. So if you've got multiple monitors, you may have to do some digging on how to configure that. But yeah, that's beyond what I want to do today. So let's just make sure that we can connect to the Tor network. Looks like I got a slow one, and we'll go ahead and start the browser up. So let's do the Tor check. That's all right, though. For right now, this is fine. Yeah, it's really slow. Okay, so I'm good, and I've got my IP address, which is probably God only knows where, but it isn't mine. So the next step I want to do here, let's just go ahead and get rid of that. Now, any configuration changes you make right now are going to be lost, so it isn't worth making any, but I do need to configure my persistent storage. It's going to go out and look at it and see if I actually have something here. And I do, and it's asking me for a passphrase, so I'll give it a real secure one, and then we'll go ahead and create it. The other thing I probably will want, I'll probably want an SSH client, and then it says restart. Okay, so you'll notice I have an unlock here for this, so I'll go ahead and give it the password. I'll hit the unlock button. I should get a message that is unlocked and I can restart Tails if I need to lock it. If I want to install software, however, I need an administrative password to do that. So I'm going to add on this capability so that I have an admin password. I'm going to go ahead and start Tails, and this time we will have the persistent storage turned on. Now the next thing I need to do, and this will probably take a lot of time because my path through the Tor network is pretty terrible. So I'm going to go to preferences here, unnamed. This is just my usual so that you can see what I'm doing. All right, so we'll do an update, and you'll notice that the packages for Tails come off the Tor network. You can see it right there. So it says I got 2 packages. I'm not going to bother with that. I am going to go ahead and install htop and neofetch. And now it's asking me to install it automatically from your persistent store when starting Tails. Do I only want to do it once or every time? In other words, am I always going to need those packages? And yes, I do. Or is this just a special? Now, that informational thing is just a text message, so don't sit and wait for it. So I should be able to run htop now. And you can see I'm using about 1.06 gig. And I can also run neofetch. And it's showing me I have 5.10 4.0-13. That is the latest update from Debian. So they are running Debian 11-5. There's my persistent store right there mounted. And then this is memory. All the rest of this is memory. So that's pretty much it. All I wanted to show you. Let's talk about some of the final thing here with it. So first of all, the changes that the Tails folks have done are great. I mean, I think that having the way that they're before, I mean, if you had a VM, they just went, but they are starting to allow virtual machines to be used. Now, it'll be interesting to see how much farther they pursue that. So, but the fact that I'm not getting the nasty message that says, "What are you doing? You shouldn't be having a VM." It didn't really say that, but it was basically saying you're on a VM and this is not a good idea. But now they have documentation that's on the site for how to for whatever virtual machine that you're trying to install with, on how to get Tails up and running, which I think is pretty cool. The second thing is that now the additional software pieces are configured into Tails, and obviously I don't have a full understanding. I'm not blaming the Tails team for this. I think that I don't have a full understanding yet on how the package management works, whether I can manage that on my typical weekly basis, or whether I need to just wait for 5.1 to pick up the updates. But being able to install packages, you can use the Synaptic Package Manager, or you can use the command line APT to do that, either one. And then I think it's kind of cool that you can either make it a one-time install. So if it's something that you need, that you know that it's only a one-off, like maybe I just need maybe I need a word processor just for this particular session, and then it's gone. So I don't have to worry about it again. I get my stuff, I put it up in a cloud somewhere, a protected cloud under an encrypted, encrypt it and put it up there, and I'm done. I just think that some of the ideas they're coming up with this system are just innovative. They're very cool and very good. That's all I had today on Tails. I love following what's going on with it, because I just think it's awesome what they're doing with it. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, please like and subscribe. Hope to see you all again real soon. Bye for now.